working stuff's for suckers.
I'm looking at the biggest one right now.
Hey, I'm Eric Perkins. You're watching episode 18 of Building a House Start to Finish, and we are so close to the completion now, merely weeks from being done with this home. At this stage of the build, there's always multiple different projects going on every day. Some are super fun and some are super tedious. Today, we show you the install of this beautiful hickory floor in the loft. We'll also show you the prep for installing this jacuzzi tub in the master bath. We also tackle the task of hanging all the interior doors. I'll show you how I like to do it. And last, we'll show you the installation of these 6-inch seamless gutters. So this is the loft, and you can see right now there's a bunch of junk in the way. So before I can even work, I gotta do a bunch of work just to get everything broken down and out of here, cleaned up again. And before you know it, this would be a beautiful hardwood floor. So let's start with this. As a builder, there's a lot of days where I just feel like a professional board mover or a professional scaffold mover because you do it a lot. You have to set up in each different location so that you can get to the places you need to work. And then when you're done with your task, you have to tear it down and move it somewhere else. I was going to illustrate for you guys. See that? That is not flat, and the wood floor won't really do great on that. So even across here, you can see actually we've marked it with a pencil already. I'll pretend like I'm doing it again. There we go. Mark those areas out, and we'll run that power plane. We did set the screws. Get in here, Ray. We set these screws extra deep so we don't ruin the power planer immediately. We will ruin it, but it hopefully will last like the whole floor. All right, we're getting ready to start this hardwood floor, but we're doing a lot of math really fast to make sure that we know exactly where this bull nose is going so that a full piece of flooring can be installed up to the bull nose. We don't want to end up with like a little sliver right here. So we need to know the placement of this riser, and then we need to see if that bull nose lines up with the mock-up of the other bull nose locations. Once all the math is done, make sure we don't need to slide this in or out just a little bit for its final location, then we can do the hardwood. So a couple hours later, we'll be doing hardwood. That's depressing, isn't it?
Depressing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do some hardwood.
I know.
Today.
Right?
You got to be a mathematician to do this.
What?
Seriously. Yeah.
That's a word I've never heard in my life.
I just made it up just now.
Here's a look at the engineered floor we're using on this project. You can see it has multiple layers of plywood, alternating grain directions, with a real wood veneer on top that gives it a lot more stability than solid wood. Let's talk about fastening this wood floor down. We do not like squeaky floors, so we're using a hardwood adhesive as well as these 18 gauge hardwood nails through the tongue part of the tongue and groove. And we're using this special nailer that shoots these nails on an angle through the tongue, just perfect. And between the two of those things, this floor will never squeak. That's the idea. Oh, it looks like a Frosty from Wendy's. A chocolate Frosty. After finally establishing the location of this bull nose, we were able to snap a chalk line across the rest of the floor as a reference for our first row of wood. It's the same distance off the exterior wall on both ends. After being the glue guy all day, Ray had to actually shave the hair off his kneecaps to get the glue to come off.
Man, I just told the guys to stay out of the glue, and then I dragged the air hose right through the glue.
Dude, it's hard to find good help nowadays, you know what I'm saying?
For real. I can't even trust myself to do this.
This is our geared flooring jack, and it really does a great job to keep the rows of flooring tight near the walls where you can't use the big flooring nailer.
All right, so we need a piece here, so we need the tongue side of that. So to get a good measurement, instead of pulling out our tape every time, what we'll just do is we'll flip this over, set this up against the wall, that we know our length, make our mark here, and then when we cut that, we'll flip it back over, cut so that'll be against the wall, and it'll be the right length.
Real man of genius.
Real man of genius.
I'm really glad we waited till it was about 90 degrees up here in the afternoon to do this.
Yeah.
Hardwood flooring is another one of those projects that's just kind of like mowing grass. You do it one row at a time, and when you're done, it looks good. Our biggest challenge here is just to keep the glue off the surface of the wood and off ourselves. Can I get you guys to stop sweating all over the floor?
Gosh, dude. This is ridiculous.
We can just go home.
Just like most other wood flooring, we shoot the last row with face nails, and you can fill these holes if they look too noticeable. And I'll also mention that we are leaving a gap around all the wall surfaces, just in case there is any expansion with this product. It is pretty stable compared to regular hardwood though.
Oh, out of bullets.
Up next, we get started with the install of this giant soaking tub, and it's the most important feature in the entire house for the homeowner, Tina. We actually designed the whole master suite around this tub and the tub's view. So this tub is actually an air bath. That means it pumps air out of tiny holes in the tub instead of pumping water out of jets like in a jacuzzi. It also has a recirculating pump with an inline heater to keep the water warm forever.
Ooh.
On a tub like this, it has to sit on the feet to bear the weight, but in reality, you want it to look like it's hanging from the rim, so we need to frame pretty precisely to make it work out.
21. I call it 21. You do have to shim this and support it at the bottom though. You can't hang it by the lid. That's the instructions.
The tub with the surround is a whopping 4 feet by 6 feet, and it will fill up this entire area. To get going, we have to remove this drain box, which has been in the slab since we poured the slab like a long time ago. It's still full of the gravel and water from when we put it in here. Once this is removed, we can set the tub, and the plumber will have access to the drain line that's under the slab. Next, Jamie does some quick math to figure out the lengths and the widths of the knee walls that will make up the tub surround, and we've never put one in just like this before, so there's always thinking involved when it's something new.
Oh, is that diet?
Yep. That.
Okay. Just checking.
Our tub surround walls are framed with framing material just like a full-size wall, except they're miniature. And it's pretty much as satisfying, I think, as building a full-size wall, just a lot faster and easier. When figuring these stud heights, we did have to take into account the depth of the finished material that will go on top of this wall. That's important.
Y'all, I hate this gray trigger on this thing. I'm a big fan of the orange trigger, the bump trigger. This thing slows me down.
Didn't you shoot through your foot with the orange trigger one time?
Yeah. You still love it though?
Yeah. You still like it?
Yeah.
All right.
Here's a great lesson in construction and in geometry. If you build something that has to fit between two walls and you make it the exact measurement, it's probably not gonna fit. So I'll show you the trick we had to do to get this in here.
All right, we got this thing in. What we did was cut the opposing corners off of it there and there, so that the diagonal width of it isn't as much and it can go in.
For one of the plates in this tub framing, we needed to notch out a big spot, and this is a great trick for doing that on the job site using saw curves, making a bunch of cuts and then knocking out the material with the claw of your hammer. It's pretty fun too.
You gonna clean up this mess, bro?
I don't know, but I do know one thing. You know what they say? That's one way to do it.
That is one way to do it, but seriously.
You know what? I think I gotta go. All right, it takes pretty much one pack of shims to hang one door. That's if your opening is fit pretty nice. If it's a little too large, you might just consider getting 2 packs per door, all right? And they're pretty cheap, so just buy a bunch of them. There's always good information on the packaging, so read everything. So these say they have thin tips, first of all, and then they say they're 100% usable. That's good, because I wouldn't want it to be just 50% usable or something like that. So make sure you buy the 100% usable ones.
Yeah, that is good news.
All right, you heard it. The first step for hanging doors, get a pouch full of 100% usable shims. Check. I don't want to bore anyone to death, but I think it's great information, so we'll run through hanging one of these doors. I like to shim for the hinge side first before installing the door because it's easier. What I'll do is take my 6-foot level and establish plumb, and that way when I go to put the door in, I already have a plumb surface for the hinge side to mount to, and that saves a lot of time and energy. If you're going to hang a door, just be prepared to spend a little time. That's what it takes to get it right, and I think it's important to get it right. I usually trim the shims flush with the drywall before installing the door with a pull saw or an oscillating saw if you got some ear protection. On most pre-hung doors like this one, there's an absurd amount of fasteners and staples that don't want to come out easily, and you're probably going to risk damaging the actual door frame itself to get them out, but do check for fasteners because once you get the door installed, it's really a lot harder to get them out. Other prep work that I did before installing the door was to make sure that the rough opening was the right width, the door handing was the right direction, and the jamb was the right depth. Then we can actually start nailing the jamb to the framing. After fastening the hinge side of the jamb to the wall, I then moved to the latch side of the jamb, and I used the door as a guide instead of using a level to plumb this side of the jamb. That way I know that the gap between the door and the jamb is perfect, and I'm usually shooting for 5/32 of an inch gap here.
That's about it.
I do, however, use my level as a straight edge to make sure that this whole jamb is straight, and I add shims as needed. Once this is done, you can remove these temporary spacers off the side and the top of the door, and I also always check that the boring for the door handle and the latch lines up vertically. Sometimes you have to trim the door jamb to make this work.
Hey, do you think I'm ready to start hanging some doors?
No, I don't think so. And finally for today, we're checking out these 6-inch seamless gutters going on the house. For metal roofs, it's important to get 6-inch gutters because the water shoots off the roof a lot faster than on a shingled roof, and it could shoot right over the gutter. Also, the downspouts are larger, so they don't get clogged as easily. It's the only type of gutter we will install on a house. The word seamless may be a little deceiving. They are extruded from one piece of roll aluminum so that there's no joints down the run, but there are joints at the ends and at the corners. Overall, though, it is a great gutter system compared to buying sections like at a box store. One lesser known thing about gutters is that they are actually required by code in many cases, especially where you have backfill behind a basement wall. In this case, they're not required by code, but they will extend the life of the siding because water won't be splattering from the ground onto the siding constantly. And if you didn't figure it out already, each piece of gutter is made on site out of the back of this box truck using these special gutter sawhorses. And this is pretty fun to see a piece of roll aluminum go in and a piece of gutter come out. And I've seen these things up to like 65 feet long coming out of the back of the truck in one piece. It's a pretty satisfying thing to watch. This particular crew had already done 3 gutter projects this day, so they're very efficient. As soon as the piece of gutter comes out, these gutter clips are installed before the piece gets cut, capped, and taken over to the house. It always looks crazy to see one man installing a piece of this gutter way up on a ladder by themselves when it looks so cumbersome and heavy, but really, with one fastener, this thing will be stuck to this fascia. If anyone has actually looked close at their own gutters, you may have noticed that they are installed out of level. And that goes against everything in my carpentry bones, but it's important so that the water drains towards the downspout end. All right, we're gonna do the guillotine. That's what chops it. Man, I'm a sissy. Once the gutter sections are hung, a downspout is then cut in and added. This will take the water all the way to the ground and away from the house. That's where it needs to be. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode and this entire journey of building a house start to finish on YouTube. It's been really fun. Make sure to stay tuned though. We've got tons of custom features like this custom door and the cabinets we built for the kitchen ourselves coming up.